Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 103 of Fraternity Foodie. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. We call these episodes Fraternity Foodie because there is nothing like great food to bring people together. We have with us today Jasmine C. Williams, an over-caffeinated friend to many and a dog mom to one.
That is accurate.
She is a proud motivational speaker. She is a speaking coach. And guess what? She found an easy, free way to cope with unexpected adversity. You're going to love this. She started half-assing it and basically just half-assing her way through life. She was barely going through the motions. She was struggling through most of her darkest days with a smile. And now she shares those ugly truths about her journey through it all to help others and draw their own roadmaps to happiness. So I am just totally fascinated. Welcome to the show, Jasmine.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, that is fantastic. So I just wanted to learn so much about you. We connected on social media and I said, this is just fascinating. I know our listeners are going to want to know more about Jasmine. So I am just so honored that you're on the show with us. And I have so many questions, but let's start with college, because I know you decided on High Point University for your college experience. Now,
Yes.
I have been to High Point University, okay? I've spoken there. It's an absolutely stunning campus. So I certainly understand why a student would want to go there. I would probably never leave the campus. That is the truth. But what made High Point the right place for you?
Yeah, like every great thing in life, it was a complete accident. My older sister went to Wake Forest for undergrad, and my mom and I grew up in Maryland, and we were leaving Maryland and coming to visit her at Wake. And we passed this sign not that far from Wake Forest, and it said High Point University. And my mom kind of looked at me and she said, did you apply there? Have you heard of that school? And I was like, I don't think I've read or seen anything about it. And she's like, let's just swing by, we've got some time to kill. And it's funny because, we had this road trip from Maryland. It was pouring, raining, it was gray and just really yucky out. And I'm sure you can attest if you've been to High Point. It's like we pulled on the campus and it was like the rainbows came out and the fountains and there's an ice cream truck driving around campus. It's absolutely beautiful. So I'm very fortunate to have gone there and very grateful about my decision to go to HBU.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. If I saw that as an undergraduate, I would want to go there as well.
Oh, yeah. Very
It looks like a resort. I mean, there's pools everywhere. Even the fraternities and sororities have their own little pool that they hang out at. And literally, it was like every so many steps on campus, there's like a cabana with free food and drinks.
Yes.
And I'm just like, this is incredible.
Muffins for breakfast on your way to class. I mean, we got pretty spoiled at High Point. I will say my first year post-grad was probably rougher than most because it's a step back into reality.
Yeah, it is a fantastic campus. So I don't blame you in the least. And so let's get a little bit into your story. You were an average college student up until age 18. You had some unexpected adversity, and basically you found an easy way to cope with it by half-assing it. So
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about what happened to you and what was that journey like?
Yes. So I have a late birthday. So I was one of those unfortunate freshmen that literally turned 18 in college. And it's so embarrassing because I used to have to fax forms home for my parents to sign because I couldn't sign them myself yet. I wasn't 18. So I turned 18 on campus at High Point, and literally a week later, my life completely changed. And I always kind of jokingly say it was like the worst wake up call to adulthood possible, right? I had just turned 18 and my mom showed up on my college campus. And as I mentioned, I'm from Maryland. So it was kind of odd that, one of my parents would just show up on campus. And my mom, asked me to come outside. She wanted to speak face to face. I could tell that something was really wrong and something was really bothering her. So when I came outside and I just looked at her, And it was like one of those movie moments where things slow down and the music shifts and you can tell something is about to happen that's going to change the main characters, the whole outline, the whole plot of the movie, but you're like on the edge of your seat, like, I don't know what it is yet. And I can still tell you everything about like that moment frozen in time, because even then I somehow knew that it was that pivotal to my story. And I actually found out that night that my older brother had died very unexpectedly. And he was pretty young. He was in his 20s. He was relatively healthy. So it was a big shock to all of us. And being so far from my family, you know, that was very, very difficult for my sister and I to kind of go back, to go home, go to the funeral, and then go back to our college campuses, you know, hundreds of miles from home. And it was interesting for me because I know so much of your audience is in Greek life. And at my university at the time, recruitment was in the spring. And so when I came back, kind of like late November, a lot of my roommates and friends were, you know, going to meetings for things about Greek life and recruitment. And I was in such a crazy place at that time that I was so far removed, and it wasn't even something that I considered. And now I really wonder if my experience would have been different and how it would have been different if I was involved in Greek life.
Yeah, that is so interesting to me. So, I mean, now you speak about this episode and you
Mhm.
use these stories to motivate others. So you motivate students and professionals. And right now, you know, with the pandemic that's going on right now, it's real easy to find all kinds of excuses to not get things done, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of barriers in the way. So what are your key ways that you use to motivate students or professionals?
Sure. So I think there are a lot of misconceptions when I say stop half-assing it. A lot of times people think that means you have to do everything. You have to do everything full stop, 100% effort, right? 100% energy, give it your best shot all the time. And it's almost the opposite. You know, one thing that I did after I lost my brother in college was I started doing everything. And if anyone who went to High Point with me is listening, they can you know verify this. But I was in probably every club on campus, you know, volunteering, mentoring. Like there were things that I was involved in that it wasn't there when I came on campus, and I was part of developing it. And I think I threw myself in all of these things because it was easier to distract myself with all of this and have, you know, every second of my day jam packed with things to do than to sit in the quiet and sit in the grief and the anxiety and all of this craziness that was going on in my life. And so it wasn't actually until after I left college that I was able to unpack some of those things when I finally had to sit in the quiet.
Mhm.
So I actually encourage a lot of people, you know, a lot of other speakers even, I'll see them posting day after day, grinding, working, speaking, hustling, and I'll DM them, don't half-ass your rest day. Take a rest day, put it on your calendar, and like seriously take that full rest day. Like PJs in bed, you know, ice cream for breakfast, Netflix binge watch, like whatever you have to do, but go all in for that rest day, the same way that you did when you were working hard. And that's what stop half-assing it means to me, is don't half-ass everything, but instead choose the things that are important to you and really commit to them and really go all in for those things specifically.
Yeah, your story really resonates with me because I think we all do that to a certain extent. Bad things happen to us, you know, all throughout life.
Mhm.
And, you know, sometimes we don't deal with those things. We just pack them away and we're like, well, we'll just deal with that later. And I
Yes.
know for me, it's like, you know, I'm always like the optimist in the group, right? I am the eternal optimist. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time with the icky stuff, the feeling
Yes.
of, oh, like that is not a comfortable place for me. So I
Mhm.
immediately go to, okay, what positive thing can we talk about? And I don't deal with that stuff that's, you know, that's hiding
Yes.
in the closet, right?
Yes. And it's
So
hard. It's really hard to do. And it's something even during the pandemic that I keep trying to remind people, like, I know it's not fun,
mhm,
but sometimes you got to just sit in that quiet and you've got to put the distractions away. I know it's so easy for us to find another show to watch, another podcast to listen to, another pet. Everyone's been getting pets during,
me
since
too.
March, because they're distractions, and
Yeah.
it's fun to have a distraction and something else to focus on. But
Oh,
doing
you're
that
so
hard work
right.
is so important.
Yeah, you're so right. It's so easy to turn to Netflix or turn to social media or turn to your pet, but you're just not dealing with what's
Hmm.
right in front of
Yes.
you, right? And
Ignorance is not always bliss, temporary bliss, maybe.
oh, it's so interesting to me. And I wonder about your coping skills because you talked about losing your brother while you were in college. And I'm sure your coping skills back then were probably not as good maybe as they are today. So how do you cope with all this chaos that's going on? It
Yeah.
could be, maybe, what you learned about your experience in college and coping with the death of your brother then. But even today, how do you cope with what's going on in the political world, the pandemic, and just other things that I would classify under just, daily stress?
Hmm. Yeah. Every single speech I've ever given, someone has asked me this question, which I love because I think that it shows that people are going through things and they're looking for an answer, right? How can I deal with this better? And I always honestly, people always think I'm joking, but I always honestly say, when I lost my brother, I watched a lot of Netflix. I ate a lot of Chick-fil-A in bed. Like, I sometimes didn't go to class. It was not this, perfect representation of how to get through something. But today, especially during the pandemic, I try to let myself feel things when they come. So, I've always been like the tough friend, the tough love friend, or sibling or daughter. And I've been trying to break myself from that mold a little bit because it can be kind of a double-edged sword. When I lost my brother, what I used to do is ignore, ignore, ignore until I hit a breaking point.
Mhm.
And then I would like be wiped out for weeks, literally weeks. And now when I feel something, like I said before, I try to lean into that feeling. And I literally ask myself, what does this mean? Why do I feel anxious about this? And I keep pushing myself, why, until I get to something. And then it's like, oh, that's where that's coming from. And for me, that didn't come on my own. A lot of that came from grief counselors, therapists over the
Mhm.
years, even great friends that have pushed me and encouraged me to kind of do that work.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of therapists. So that's great that you got the help that you need. That's just
Yes.
changed my life. I mean, it just
Oh, yeah.
changed the way that I operate. And so if you haven't seen a therapist and you're really struggling, you should try it and see what happens because it's life changing, I think.
I
So,
think so too. Yeah,
yeah.
especially right now, so many therapists are doing virtual sessions, which I
Mhm.
think is huge for people. So completely
Yes.
agree. Could not recommend that tool
Yeah.
resource more.
That makes it much more accessible if we can go online. So this is interesting how all of this is playing out, right?
Hmm.
So all right, so let's talk about that because a lot of people during this pandemic, people are working from home. So how can you create the perfect work environment at home now? Because we're all stuck in this, this house and four walls, and we don't see a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's really, really tough. I think, over the years, I have definitely become more type A than I was when I was younger, which has its perks and has its downfalls, right? But one thing that I've taken from that, which is really, really useful for me, is just the importance of routine. And it doesn't have to be, right? You don't have to have a schedule set out for yourself every day. But certain aspects of your routine are really, really crucial for your mental health. So, perfect example, pre-pandemic days, I worked in downtown DC and I used to take the metro every single day. So, about 3, 4 days a week when I was going into DC for work, I would take the metro, and my commute was about 45 minutes to an hour each way on the metro. And during that time, I would sit and I would read a book. because sometimes on the metro, your cell service is in and out. So you can't always, check email or Instagram or whatever. And I would sit and read a book for 2 hours a day for 3 or 4 days a week. And during the pandemic, there were some times that I kept noticing I was like so frazzled and so uptight, and I couldn't understand like what is different, what was the stress relief I had before that I don't have right now. And for me, I realized I used to read. I used to read every probably 3 or 4 days a week on the metro. I was reading, and that was a big stress relief for me to kind of go from work Jasmine to home Jasmine, right? It was that transitional period. I think that's a big aspect that a lot of us are missing, is that transitional period, right? That time, as much as we hate sitting in traffic, that is our brain's marker of you are going home, and that is shifting and ending. So as far as how to work and have a good work environment at home, I would say find a way to create that separation again, even if it's you always walk your dog as soon as you're done working, or you change your clothes when you're done working, or you shower when you're done working, just something to mark the end of that part of your day so that your brain knows that, okay, this is home Jasmine now. Work Jasmine can kind of go away until tomorrow.
Yeah, I really love those tips. That's really good. Because I think about myself during the workday, I'm aggressive. I'm go get like, for 8 hours, I'm just hitting it hard. And
Mm-hmm.
then in the next room is my family, and they're not expecting the mic that's like super
Right.
aggressive, right?
Yes.
But there is no downtime. There is no cool down time. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think our brains don't really know how to make that shift
Yeah.
and, turn into relaxation mode or turn into family mode. And so if we do have something, it could be working out, it could be going for a walk, something to act as that buffer between the work time and the personal time now that we're all at home and it feels like one continuous day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you sit in the same chair every single day for
Yes.
hours and hours and hours. So interesting how things are changing. And you obviously have some really good speaking skills and you're a speaker coach. So I'm wondering, for all the college students that are listening right now, how can they improve their speaking skills?
Oh yeah. I think when I was in college there was this misconception that only two majors needed speaking skills. It was theater and it was journalism. And I was in a journalism major, so I was kind of in that camp. Um I cannot stress this enough, but every single major, every single student, speaking skills are so important. Now being in the working world and seeing, especially when we were still in person, seeing people get up and present at a meeting or at a board presentation, and seeing the drastic differences between some presentations and what captivates us. Who are we sitting and leaning on the edge of our seats to listen to? And who are we kind of scrolling through our emails on our phones when they're talking, and why? And that was one of the things that kind of interested me in becoming a speaking coach, to help people figure out how they can improve those skills for themselves. So, my biggest tip for college students would be take as many opportunities as you can to practice. So whether that's presentations, whether that's doing Zoom class and actually turning on your camera and speaking back to your professor, which I know a lot of my friends who are teachers are professors, that engagement isn't quite as strong. And it's hard, but I think it's important to continuously practice, because that's the only way you'll ever get better. And some of the awkwardness and the anxiety and stress about speaking, that's the best way to minimize it, is to just practice more, and you'll find yourself much more comfortable.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, in every town in the country, there is a Rotary meeting, and these
Yes.
Rotary clubs are looking for speakers every single
Hmm.
week. Now, they're not going to pay you anything because they're broke. But what I will tell you is that they're looking for speakers every single week. So if you have a topic out there that you want to talk about in the community, maybe about some community service project that you're doing or philanthropy work that you're doing with your fraternity or sorority, go to a Rotary Club and talk to them about what it is that you're doing at, let's say, High Point University. And they would love to hear from you. They would absolutely love it. So contact them and see what happens. But I'm with you. I think no matter what your major is, the biggest mistake that I see college students make is that they're not working on their speaking skills. And you're going to need it. I promise you. It doesn't matter what you do. Ultimately, you're going to have to sell yourself at an interview. You're going to be sitting across the table from me as the CEO, and I'm going to want to see what your presentation skills are like. And if
Yes,
you don't have
absolutely.
it, you are at a big disadvantage.
Yes, there have been so many times when, now that I'm often on the other side of the interview table, right, that my team has kind of reconvened after an interview and we're like, either, they're perfect on paper, but there's something missing, or I don't care if her resume matches, she could sell a pen, right? She could sell me a pen, so we got to get her, right? And it's often a toss up of one of those two. And I think that's so crucial, because a lot of times I don't remember what's on your resume. I don't remember what I looked at on your LinkedIn, but I remember your energy in the room. And I remember, if I forgot to look at my phone or check my email while you were talking because I was so drawn in to what you were saying.
You're so right. That experience is what you remember. I mean, I've looked at literally thousands of resumes over the years, but it's that energy that I remember from those interviews. It's not
Mhm.
what is on the paper. The paper gets you in the door, but once you're there, I want to feel your energy. I want to see what you're going to bring to the team, and it's all about those presentation skills. So kudos to you for recognizing that and talking about that with college students today. And now your expertise includes writing, editing. I know you're really good with social media because that's how we ended up meeting, website management. I'm just wondering, how did you get into all of that?
Oh, wow. Um, so like I said, I'm a big reader. So I've been reading, I think my parents taught me how to read when I was like 4. And not too long after that, I used to actually sit in church with my dad. And I would take like those old school yellow legal pads. My dad loves those. And I would literally transcribe, like if there was a speaker or a pastor or someone, speaking in the pulpit, and I would transcribe exactly what they were saying word for word. And when some of the older church members would leave for the day, I would give them a copy. Like, here's a copy of the sermon from today for you to take home. This was before, everything was Facebook Live and you could Zoom church and things like that, right? This was years ago. And that was really, I started doing that when I was probably like 8 or 9 years old. And my parents were like, wow, she really likes to write. Like, we're all in the same, sermon together, and she's writing exactly what's happening. And I think I just haven't stopped since. And so, as digital sort of became bigger, I was very fortunate to kind of grow up with social media and grow up with website management becoming so important for brands. I sort of translated that love for writing in the digital space.
Yeah. Wow, that is really incredible. So, I mean, all of that resonates with me because I manage our website for the company, and I've been doing that for years. Search engine optimization. I was doing that even before search engine optimization even had a name.
Right.
It was just like, this is what we need to do to be at the top of Google.
Yes.
And it was just like trial and error. There was no script. It was like, does this work? Does this not work? So we're just kind of like a product of our environments, right? I mean, you grew up in this age of social media all around you, and it's all about tinkering and trying to figure out
Mhm.
what works, what doesn't work, a lot of testing, and eventually you kind of figure out your lane. So it's just interesting how all of that plays out and how that leads to a career later. So what advice do you have for recent college graduates that might not feel like they are career ready at this moment, and they're probably facing a very daunting job market in the middle of COVID-19? What advice do you have for them?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I think that I've, over the years, I've been through a lot at a relatively young age. And I get told a lot. Someone just told me today, you're very wise beyond your years. And I think COVID-19 and the college students who are in undergrad or even in graduate school right now will share that. I think that many of them will develop a wisdom that's far beyond their years because of this experience. And when I first went through a lot of adversity, I didn't want to talk about it. It was very difficult. It was very emotional for me, and it's still often emotional for me to talk about it. Um, but when I noticed a shift in my life was when I stopped being afraid to show the difficult things that I had been through and how they helped me in a positive way, right? And I talk about that a lot in speeches, is how negative experiences can lead to very positive growth for us. Um, and so for college students, I would say when you're sitting in that interview, don't be afraid to show that grit. Don't be afraid to show, like, I've been in the trenches and I'm still here and I'm still sitting in front of you. Here's why I'm the perfect person for this job because of what I've been through. And I think that when you get that, there's just like an energy when you see someone that really you can just tell there's nothing that's going to stop them. And when I sit across from someone like that at an interview, I'm like, there is nothing we can throw at them that they can't handle, right? Like they went through college during COVID-19, like they're good to go. And so I say use it. I say use the grit, use the hardship. Don't make the whole interview or the whole process about that, but let that kind of pain and the difficulty kind of guide you.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. I have a daughter who's a freshman in high school, and I have a son who's a sophomore in high school right now. And they were going to school online during COVID for the fall semester, and they really didn't like it. It wasn't a good atmosphere for them. It wasn't what they were looking for, and they had difficulties. And they came to us and they said, what if our grades suffer as a result of COVID-19? And this was a genuine concern for them, and they felt like they were at a disadvantage against other students that around the country that maybe were having in-person instructors with their own teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, you got to use it. That is adversity, and adversity can sometimes be good in building your character and building other parts of your personality and other characteristics. And I think you're going to be better because of this experience. And I know right now it's really hard for you to see that. But I'm telling you, years from now, you're going to look back on it and say that I made the following decisions and I was able to conquer these things because I did X, Y, and Z. And you will be successful. So I think about that. I think about, fraternity and sorority members that might be in a small, struggling chapter. They're trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to keep their organization together, and everything is falling apart because of COVID-19, and we can't get together and we can't have parties, and we're really small and we're struggling to attract new members into our organization. And I'm like, you know what? That is battle tested. If you can survive that and you can show me as CEO how you grew the organization despite all of the struggles that you had, I'm going to hire you over the person who had it easy in a chapter full of 100 members and didn't have to work at all because they had the biggest house on campus and people just walked in and fell in love with the place and joined the organization. I want the
That
grit.
is so true.
I want the grit. Give me the grit.
Yes.
That's the one that I'm going to hire. And so,
Yes.
don't
Every
let that
time.
every time, right? Because I know that when things go haywire, and they will go haywire in your career, I
Always.
promise you are not going to panic. You're going to develop a plan and you're going to be successful. Those are the students I want to hire.
Every time. I could not agree more. I mean, that was a spot on description. Like, I completely agree. I think you can just feel it. There's an energy, there's a sense of empowerment almost that you can just tell this person will not be frazzled by every little thing. They're going to just figure it out. I read Marie Forleo's book earlier this summer, and it's called Everything is Figure Outable. And I think that the pandemic is breeding a whole new generation of people with that philosophy, which is really special and unique. And I think we should embrace it as much as we can.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So we love really good food here at Fraternity Foodie. So I'm wondering, I know you're in the DC area, so tell me, where are your favorite places to go to get food in the DC area?
Oh, this is so hard because DC is like such a melting pot of different types of food. And I mean, you could have a hole in the wall restaurant, and then right next to it be like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, right? Like that is the epitome of DC life, and we love it. We love it for that, right? Oh man. Okay. One of my favorite DC restaurants, DC area restaurants, a coworker introduced me to Taco Bamba a couple years ago. It's called Taco Bamba. The best tacos I've ever had. Every other taco place I've been to since I went there for the first time, I'm like, it's no Taco Bamba, but it's okay. So that became like my scale. So I have to include them. Let's see. When I was still working in downtown DC, so pre-pandemic days, my coworkers and I used to take a lot of trips to the Hamilton, which is not too far. It's like a few blocks over from the White House, actually. So we took a lot of happy hours and dinners at the Hamilton. So that's a great spot. And there are just way too many good brunch places in DC to even try to name. But so I'll say those are my top two, probably.
Those are great suggestions. I mean, who doesn't love tacos? So once you find a really good taco place, I mean, I totally get that. It's kind of like pizza for me because I was born in New York City and I know what a good slice of pizza should taste like. So everywhere else I go around the country, I'm like, it's not New York City slice, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it just ruins it for you. And everything else that you taste, you're always comparing it to the best slice that you've ever had in New York City. And I still miss it. I live in Nashville today, and it's so hard to find a good slice. We found a couple of good places that are really good, but it's still, in the back of your
Not
mind,
the
this is an
same.
imposter.
Yes, love Nashville. There's tons of great food in Nashville too.
There definitely is. The barbecue is on point. I mean, it
Yes.
is delicious. So, you find other things to substitute for what you really crave.
Right.
And then when I'm speaking on stage in New York City, you best believe that I'm going to
Absolutely.
get a New York City slice.
Yes.
That's really cool. All right. Well, listen, I've loved this. So if students or corporations who might be listening right now, maybe they want to bring you in as a motivational speaker, or maybe they have additional questions for you as a speaking coach, what is the best place for our listeners to reach you and to follow you?
Yes. So my website is jasminecwilliams.com. That's the best place to reach me. And you'll actually find all my social channels linked on there. So just head over to the website and you'll find more information. But I'm excited about it. My team is kind of starting to ramp up for 2021 virtual bookings, of course. But it's been an incredible year for a lot of speakers despite the pandemic, because I think people need that extra motivational content right now. They need that inspirational story and reminder that good things come out of grit. So I'm happy to be that for students if I can.
I totally agree. My January is booked to the rim with people that just want to be inspired right now. So I'm
Mhm.
just grateful to be a speaker. I'm grateful to be able to offer those services. I'm grateful for you and what it is that you're doing because I think you are just a shining star. I am sure that I'm going to see you on a stage very, very soon, somewhere on the road. Once, obviously, this pandemic goes away, I will see you on the road. There's no question.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was such an honor and I was excited to do it.
Well, cool. Well, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. And to our listeners, we hope you love Jasmine too. Make sure you like this video. Make sure that you share it with others that would really like to hear her message. And we hope to see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Bye for now.